Hello, Asa. I cut a bunch of holes in wood. How many holes? Let's count how many holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. What is 11 squared? 12 squared is 144. 10 is 100. What's the formula for the next square? 10 times 10. You're missing 10 ones and an 11. So 21. Oh, that is a good formula. There's a formula there. Alright, Asa, it finally happened. The world fell apart, and now no one knows squares of values anymore. Now, I think there's two things we can do with this formula. One would be to solve it out, and we will probably see, hopefully, that it is the same. And so that's plus 2n minus 1. So all this cancels out, and it's just n squared equals n squared. So I don't know if you know this, but one of the things I find super interesting is different ways in mathematics that we can avoid multiplication and division. That's what a slide rule does, is it turns that into a function of addition. 1 times 1, so equals 1. It's just, you can do that in your head. Even if you want to, you could do the 2 times 2 equals 4, but let's rewrite it here in a way a bit more palatable. N squared equals our last term squared, 2 of this term minus 1. So we start with 1. We know 1 squared is 1. So if we want the next term, 2, we get 2 squared equals 1 squared plus our current term, which is 2, minus our last term, which is 1. That's what the n minus 1 is, our last term, and the n is our current term. So with that, we get 4. 2 squared is 4. Now if we want to do 3 squared equals our last term squared, which we just calculated, 4, plus our last term, 2, plus our current term, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3 squared is 9. Now we want 4 squared. 4 squared equals our last term squared, which is 9, plus our last term, 3, plus our current term, 4. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And from there, you can keep going, and hopefully you can kind of see how, at first it's a bit annoying, right? Because 4 squared is obvious, right? You could solve, that's 4 plus 4 plus 4. But if you imagine yourself, right, like I was doing earlier when I figured this out live on camera, if you're doing, say, 12 squared and don't want to calculate it, but you know 11 squared is 121. 121 plus 11 plus 12. And you can figure out that that is 4, 4, 1. And then you could imagine that this keeps going, right? And then you might end up with like 374 squared. And do you really want to calculate 374 squared by hand? I personally don't, because that would be 374 plus 374 plus 370, like way too long. And so you can imagine if you're in like a universe where everything has gone to heck and no one has a calculator anymore, this might be a nice way to do it. And then you have a table of squared values that you can just look up whenever. Anyway, Asa, I guess thanks for coming along on this, whatever this was. And hopefully you found it entertaining. I did, but that's because this is what I find entertaining. And I will see you tomorrow on Friday.